So in the most recent episode of Survivor 47, something happened that, well, I guess I would say I never really thought would happen. Not so much that I thought about this happening and thought, no, Survivor would never allow that. More like I never even really thought that this would be an option in Survivor. Basically, to set it up, in the Final 9 Immunity Challenge, the contestants were offered a deal by Jeff. If 4 players were to sit out of the challenge, so almost half of the players left, Jeff would give the players some much needed rice for consumption. But where we're at in the game, no player was going to sit out, and it was very clear that no one wanted to sit out just for rice. But then one player, Caroline, asked Jeff if 2 players were to give up their shot in the dark, would that be enough for Jeff to give them rice, which Jeff immediately said no. But then Kyle brought up if everyone gave up their shot in the dark, if that was enough for Jeff to give up rice. And yes, it was. And every player very easily gave up their shot in the dark, with the exception of Sam, who needed a little bit convincing, but he ultimately still gave it up. Oh, and I guess Rachel didn't have a shot in the dark to give up anyway, but still, 8 people gave up their shot in the dark for rice. 8 people willingly gave up a 1 in 6 shot at safety for some rice, which made me think, is there really any point for Survivor to keep the shot in the dark in the new era of Survivor, or should they scrap it and move on? Well, let's first take a look at all the shot in the dark plays and come to an opinion. In the first season of the new era, Survivor 41, the shot in the dark was used one time by Sydney Siegel. She gave up her chance to vote and played the shot because she was feeling uneasy about Tribal, which was granted, as her shot did not work and she was voted out in a 5-4-3 vote. Meaning that if she had voted for Evie in this Tribal, it would have been a tie. But in a revote, I'm pretty sure she still goes home, so she gets voted out. So far, the shot in the dark is 0-1. Survivor 42 has the record for the most number of shots being played in the season so far, with 4, so I will try to get through these as quickly as possible. Zach, the first person to use it this season, was pretty sure he was going home in the first Tribal of the season, so he played a shot, it rolled not safe, and he was voted out in a 5-0 vote. Shot in the dark is now 0-2. The very next Tribal, Mariah used hers, and it didn't work, and she was voted out in a 4-0 vote. Shot is now 0-3. 2 Tribals later, Swati used her shot, and it was also unsuccessful, and she was voted out in a 3-1 vote. Something to note here is that Zach played his shot in the dark on day 3 and Swati played hers on day 9, which means in a 6-day span on Survivor 42, 3 shot in the darks were played, which I find very interesting. Later in the season, a very weird case led to a shot being used. This was a double elimination episode where the 10 players left in the game were split up into teams of 5 and each team would vote someone out. And during one of the Tribals, Drea and Marianne played their idols before the votes were cast, and Jonathan was immune, so only 2 people could be voted for, Tori and Lindsay. And everyone at the Tribal Council actually verbally said they would all vote for Tori. And obviously after hearing this, Tori said she'd play her shot in the dark. And since the only other person that was eligible to be voted out was Lindsay, Jeff said that no one would actually vote. And if Tori's shot worked, then Lindsay would go home. If not, Tori goes. Very weird circumstances, but Tori's shot is unsuccessful and she goes home. The shot in the dark has never worked still and is 0-5. Now we get on to Survivor 43, where the shot is only used once by Sammy at the final 7, which is the latest in the game it has ever been used yet. But it does not work and he is voted out in a 6-0 vote. And the shot is now 0-6. Funny how that works. Now, Survivor 44 is where it gets fun. So in the first Tribal Council of the season, 2 shot in the darks are played, and for very different reasons. Matthew uses his shot in the dark at the first Tribal to avoid revealing his true alliance, since the shot negates a person's vote. So the outcome of the shot didn't really matter to him, but it was unsuccessful. But the other person to use it was Jamie Lynn Ruiz, who was actually scared she could be the person voted out. And for the first time in Survivor history, she rolled a safe, which means the shot in the dark is now 1-7 in the Survivor new era. During the Tribal, Brandon Cottom also used his idol and was able to idol out Maddie Pamia, which means this is the first time in the show's history that the person who played the shot in the dark did not go home in the same Tribal. I guess that means that every player up till now who has played the shot has had a decent enough read in the game to know for sure that they were going home. Well, except for Jamie. Matthew would last until day 11 where he was medically evacuated and finished 13 out of 18, but Jamie would go all the way to the final 6 where she was the 11th person voted out. Another shot was used only a little bit later by Claire Rafson, and this one was unsuccessful and she was voted out in a 4-0 vote. Now, it gets really interesting in Survivor 45. On day 13, Caleb uses his shot in the dark in the first merged Tribal Council, and it actually works, negating all 11 votes casted for him. And since everyone voted for him and he couldn't vote, so there was no other vote for another person, a revote happened where Jay Maya was voted out 10-1. This Tribal was very reminiscent, in my opinion, of the Wentworth Tribal in Cambodia, where the majority lines took stake in the person they were voting for to not have anything up their sleeve and casted all their votes for one person. In Cambodia, there is a bit of an excuse here because guessing who has an idol can be a bit tough, but here it's like, guys, there's 11 votes to throw around, and you do not need to cast them all for one person because everyone knows Caleb has his shot in the dark. Either way, Caleb's works, and the shot is now 2-8. Unfortunately for Caleb, the shot working didn't buy him much more time, as in the very next episode, partially due to a bad final 12 tribe split, he gets voted out. But we won't have to wait that much longer for another shot, as fearing for his life, Jake plays his shot in the dark, which was unsuccessful, and he receives 3 votes. But luckily for him, a blind side of Kelly was in the works, and she was voted out 5-3. Shot in the dark falls to 2-9 and now is officially eliminated from the playoffs. Survivor 46 is simple, as Mariah plays hers, it doesn't work, and she's voted off 10-1. And the shot is now 2-10. And now we get to the most recent season where Rachel used hers in a kind of unique way. Rachel actually has an idol and feels unsafe at the final 11 of the game, but doesn't feel unsafe enough to play her idol. So she uses her shot in the dark to see everyone's reaction to her playing it to see if she should play her idol, because you do not need a vote to play an idol. She uses it, it doesn't work, but she ultimately feels like she doesn't need to play the idol for herself, which is a correct read. But unfortunately for her, her 2 biggest allies left in the game, Sam and Sierra, get blindsided, getting tied votes, and then they revote Sierra is voted out. The shot, as of the recording of this video, is now sitting at 2-11, and it will stay that way since, like I said in the beginning of the video, no one has their shot left. So now we get back to the question of the video. Is there really any reason to keep the shot in the dark? It has worked twice and failed 11 times, and it really only worked the way production wanted it to 1 time. So what? If they keep it 1 time every 7 seasons, we get someone who is probably going to be unanimously voted out, get immunity, and the next option goes home? I just don't think that is enough to keep this twist in the game. I think from Jeff and production standpoint, they thought that the shot would probably be used way more than it has, but I think Survivor is just way more complicated than that. The only time a shot has been used and the person who used it didn't get a unanimous vote or all votes but 1, and the person was actually scared they were going home was Sydney in 41, Jamie in 44, and Jake in 45. The only time a person will use a shot in the dark is if they are pretty much 100% sure they are going home. Because if a vote is close, why would you ever use your shot in the dark? Because you cannot vote, and your vote in Survivor is probably one of the most important things you can have. And honestly, if you dug yourself in a deep enough hole where the entire tribe unanimously wants you to be voted out, I don't know if you deserve a random shot at being safe. I mean, unless you're swap screwed, but Survivor also refuses to do swaps anymore for some reason, as they've only done a tribe swap twice in the new era. And it's not like you worked to find the shot in the dark either, like an immunity idol. You get it off rip in Survivor now. The shot in the dark experiment on Survivor needs to end. It had 1 cool moment in 7 seasons of work, and way more one-off advantages have had 1 cool moment and have never been used again. So I don't understand why the shot continues to be used on Survivor. This needs to be put in the scrap pile of new era things that have not worked out, like the Survivor game within the game seen in 41. But if I had to guess, I don't think that in the new era of Survivor, we will ever see the shots get taken away. For some reason, it seems like Jeff and production really like this twist, and I don't really understand why. And even if we do see the removal of the shot in the dark, I don't see it happening until after Survivor 50. But that's just my 2 cents. I would love to hear what the rest of y'all think about the shot in the dark twist and its future in Survivor. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thank you all for watching.